The number one illness or disease humanity and the planet is currently facing. And it's not really so much the planets, it's more about the consciousness that flows through everything. And what we can see as a result of this disease is everything that's currently going on in our culture, in our whole ecosystem we call society, although it's not really an ecosystem, because the real ecosystem is of course nature around us. The real disease we are experiencing is that we live on this land, on the earth, and not with it. Now, we can delve further into the whole history of human consciousness and where we have been and where we are currently at. But if you are on this journey of developing consciousness, awareness and everything that's currently going on, I'm sure you're pretty much familiar with the loads of information out there that you can find to develop a bigger understanding of where we are coming from and where we are at and where we might be going if we continue in the way we are currently living. Because all the symptoms we see in the whole construct of society we could see is that we are disconnected from our own true authentic self. It's like all the pain and the suffering we have experienced in our past, it's like that has further separated us from our own true authentic self, from a sense of self-worth, self-love, love for the earth, for the planet, for nature. And that's why we live in this illusion of separation. We live in this idea is that we have an outside world and perhaps we have an inside world, but our inside world is more like a projection of what we see around us, and we don't really see it as like, oh, in the way we see the outside world, it's who we are, but more in the sense of, well, you know, I have this egocentric personality and I feel the separation and I must fight and struggle for my survival. And for many of our high sensitives, for our intuitives who have been on this journey of spiritual awakening, development, we realize is that this whole journey is about increasing our vibrational frequency, increasing our sensitivity, opening up the heart to develop this awareness that everything is connected and we must align ourselves with the laws of nature and the earth. Otherwise, planet Earth will shred off humanity as a skin, as a dead skin from a snake. But if we are developing our sensitivity, opening up the heart, increasing our awareness, we also can feel is that we must operate, or we are living like we are dragging an anchor through thick mud, living in this 3D world of consciousness. Because whether you decide to separate yourself from this society, you live in your own little bubble of spiritual alignments, in a little cabin in the woods, and you look to the outside and you see the world passing, and you think to yourself, wait a minute, I should actually be participating in that world in order to shine a little bit of light on this darkness of where humanity is at. But if you of course live in your own little spiritual bubble and you see the world passing by, you always feel like, you know, I could do more, I should be doing more. What you're not doing is because you're separating yourself from the problem, you're hiding from the problem. So once again, if you live in this little bubble, then you also create, let's say, a separation within yourself. Like you are pretending to feel good within your little bubble, but at the end you don't, because you don't feel like you're doing enough in order to shine a little bit of light to those who are searching for it. Now, I've been watching this incredible series on Prime Amazon, which is called Yellowstone. And Yellowstone, it's really about a bunch of ranchers or cowboys in Montana, and their whole purpose is to pretend or protect their land from corporate invaders who wanna turn this land into attraction park, just like what you can see in Aspen, in Colorado. Although I've never been there, but if you see the footage of Montana, it's absolutely incredible what we could see there. But the ranchers are also, of course, in conflict with the Native Americans, the Indian tribes, because they feel like the land has been stolen from us by the white people, who believes that their way of living is the way forward. But now these ranchers or these cowboys are actually the modern Indians who are currently facing the threat of corporate greed, who believe that there should be airports built, attraction, casinos and all of that stuff, and build these incredible lands and put hotels on it. So that's once again another example, is that we don't live with the land, we live on it. And that's exactly where humanity is at. We live on this land, living in separation of nature, disconnected from nature. And of course the native tribes all around the world has been sacrificing their lands and their spiritual traditions of how they see and feel that everything is connected. There is spirit in everything. There is spirits in our ecosystems, in their spirit in the trees, in the lands, in the earth, in the soil. And everything we are currently doing is going completely against that natural law. But also everything that we are doing is against our own inner laws. Like this whole belief system we have developed within our society, like where humanity is currently at, it's losing itself in complete narcissism. And this whole narcissism is creating further isolation and separation within ourself. It's like we are losing the connection with ourselves and others, and we are closing down our heart, where we have to meet the expectations from our social environments. Of course, I also mentioned a couple of times, like the lands of Britain, they also had, of course, tribes hundreds of years ago. The lands where people were living in the traditions of paganism and other, the Druids and the Celts and whatnot, and they also had to sacrifice their way of living for modern ways of living, because that was simply the way forward. And these modern ways are, of course, the ways of modern religions. So there are, of course, countless and countless examples throughout our history that caused the developments of the illusion of separation, and that we must hold on to a dogma or an ideology, and whether that be like a religion or the religion of capitalism and consumerism that is reaching absolutely its peaks right now, we see is that it's causing very much a lot of pain, struggle, survival consciousness within ourselves, and we see ourselves as a tiny little drop of water that is like cooking and boiling on a hot cooking plate, but we do not feel like we are this tiny little drop of water that is connected with this ocean around us. So that is really what it feels for many of us, is like we are burning ourselves out mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and we are in an absolutely spiritual starvation mode right now. And that's really the illness and the dis-ease we are experiencing right now. So we can go for hours and hours and hours and hours on what's going on and everything that we see here. Of course, we can go into the business of farming, of how we are producing our foods and the whole food system. And also that is, of course, right now completely out of alignment and balance with the laws of nature. And although there are a couple of organizations that are working very, very hard to go with it, going all organically and whatnot, but that's not really the modern conventional way of farming, because everything has to be predictable. Now you could say, alright, so the modern way of farming, producing meat and all of that is bad for the environment, so you could go in as a veganist, extremist, I say like, listen, we have to only chew on veggies, but even if you see like, okay, so how our land and the soil has been plowed over and over and over and over again, killing everything that is in the soil with it, all the tiny little animals that existing in the soil with it. You could also say, well, this whole debate is absolutely pointless, because as long as we are consuming, we have to find a way of going with it, and that's how we are on it. So what are the ways forward? What can we do? First, it's really the whole journey and the process of treading these layers of survival, poverty, consciousness that we all carry. It's all existing within us. The only tiny little corner of this universe we can influence is, of course, our own inner universe. Our thoughts, feelings, emotions, which leads to beliefs, and beliefs will amplify our actions and deeds in the world, which will lead, of course, to results, and these results will further develop and influence our beliefs, and so on. It's a circle that comes around. So it's really, first of all, is seeing what is causing the separation and isolation within ourselves. How can we take a step back from our day-to-day operation of living and dragging our anchors through this mud of survival consciousness that we are doing each and every day, trying to meet our needs of survival, financially, emotionally, spiritually, and take a step back from it. Simply take a step back for it and commit to this journey of self-reflection. First of all, get out of nature and observe everything that's around us. Pay some attention to our mindfulness. Become mindful and aware of actually what is really going on, what is really real. Like, I'm here out in a park in southwest London. There are a lot of parrots around here, so we could pay attention to that and simply immerse yourself to something that is unconditionally. It does what it needs to do in its own way. Now that is, of course, one thing. Self-reflection, mindfulness. I mean, nature is my spiritual sanctuary. This is where I can tune in to feel what's going on within myself, where I don't have to listen to the beliefs of someone else or the dogmas of someone else being preached in some kind of church. For me, this is my church. And eventually the whole spiritual journey is really about, okay, so listen very closely, intuitively, to what is needed for you right now in this very moment. That is really listening closer to our own natural state of being, getting in touch with the authentic self, the true authentic self. That is a practice of self-love. That's one thing, self-reflection. The second thing, of course, is like, we are also feeling disconnected from nature because we are out of resonance with it. We are completely out of resonance with it because what we are consuming into our bodies, it's far away from natural, of course. It's all this artificial, chemical produced junk foods, frankenfoods, produced in laboratoriums with ingredients no one can pronounce, and we call it food. It fills the body, but it depletes us from nutrition. And like I already said, the business of farming has to be a predictable business. So when you put seeds in the ground, you first have to plow the soil over and over and over again, throw in some seeds, the seeds need to grow, and we need to prevent it that little beetles are going to destroy our crops, so we throw a loads of herbicides and pesticides all over it so it can keep growing, and we do this process over and over and over and over again, and there's absolutely zero nutrition in our soil. So we must become, of course, very conscious and aware of what it is that we are putting in our bodies, how we are feeding and nourishing our bodies, because that will also nourish our whole nervous system, the mind, our emotions and whatnot. I mean, just check to see, for example, what is gluten doing to you. I mean, it's not so much the gluten, it's really about how the grains have been, of course, have been modified to once again to produce the glyphosate that is on it. So our bodies need a loads of time and energy to get rid of all the toxins, and that is really robbing us from living in our potential. And that's really how that enhances the feeling like we are dragging some kind of anchor through thick mud in this consciousness, constantly feeling drained and fatigued and tired, and we are trying to, you know, meet our basic needs, financial needs, and we do so by getting into a job, and we feel we are like a bunch of slaves at the bottom of this pyramid scheme where shit goes down and money goes up. That's really how it feels like for us. And although we want to, you know, perhaps build up a spiritual business and a holistic health business, and but if we are running on 10-20% of our true potential, because at some way we feel like, okay, I want to push the needle forwards, I want to put in the pedal and move forward, achieve my goals, but by the first obstacle we hold back because of how we feel. So the first thing we must take fully responsible for is our feeling state, of course. We'll start off with nutrition. So self-reflection, nutrition, these are one of really the most important things that we can do. That's the whole foundation of moving forward, because that's the fuel that is needed for taking full responsibility of stepping into our own creative powers, where we can build our own lighthouse for ourselves, so we can shine our lights to this very dark stage of where humanity is currently at. And really is to fine-tune our consciousness to the laws of nature, because once we do that for ourselves, we can show the way. We can show the way of what's the way forward on how we can live with the land and not on it, because the majority of humanity will continue to live on it, and that is going to give us some major lessons that are coming up, as the earth will be shredding off his skin like a snake shredding off his skin. And that's what the earth will do to humanity because of how we are currently living. And we are neglecting the wisdom and the knowledge from our ancestors and the native tribes of the lands that we were stealing from them in order to develop our modern ways of living. And we can see right now of what that has given to us. So that's really what I wanted to share for you. I mean, all links are down below if you want to learn how you can move things forward. First of all, the whole journey of self-reflection, meditation in nature, go further, deeper within, archive our inner world, our inner library of thoughts, feelings and emotions. Take a step back so we can step up in self-awareness, consciousness. Get out in nature is the best practice to do that. Take a step back from this daily grind of living inside our life, most of the time into survival consciousness. Self-reflection, and of course what it is, how we are feeding and nourishing our bodies, and sometimes we need to cleanse the body, detox the body, and that's also something you could do further, investigate further. So that's why I've got a couple of pages where you can learn more about that. So hopefully this was helpful. Let me know your thoughts, what it is that you experiencing right now at the moment, and let's start up this conversation. Alright, I look forward to see you all in my next videos. Take care for now, bye bye.